Good afternoon. Thank you for sharing with us today in our committee meetings. We're going to start today with Academic Performance 2.01.
Test. All right. You good? This is good. All right. Good afternoon, commissioners, public. First item, we're recommending to approve a renewal contract for the Pursuit Center in the amount of $320,000. The Pursuit Center's program designed by the Division of Virtual Education and Logistics. This was designed to reduce the rate of recidivism in juvenile offenses. This is the first year renewal option under the current contract with Shelby County government with 2 additional options to renew. Yes.
Okay. Any questions, colleagues, regarding 2.01?
Total number of students, 869 were detained in 2022. And then current number, do we have that number readily available, Dr. Whitelaw? That are benefiting from the Pursuit Center?
Yes, it's 16 students per 30 days. 16? Every 30 days. And we've served a total of 214 students. I think it's on the next slide.
So on the next slide, it's not in the item. We'll update that. Additional questions? Commissioner Love? Can I get her a mic?
What is the parents' participation like?
Commissioner Love, the parents are notified and they work with the parents, so they meet. But basically, this is for the students and how they go out into the community. So Valerie and her team meet with the parents to go over what the expectations are, how they're supporting the students. But basically, that is the part of just making sure that they support and that they follow up and be part of the program.
They have to be part of the program because the kids go back to the parents.
Yes. So yes, they have to be part of the program.
Yeah.
.02.
This recommendation is for PowerSchool Master Services Agreement in the amount of $2.278 million for a 1-year renewal for the continued use of PowerSchool. Of course, that's our student information service. That's how we review all of our data for our students, take attendance, review data. Any questions?
I think we probably ask the same question every year. Is there a discount if we do more than a 1-year renewal? Because every year we do 1 year, 1 year. Is there a savings anywhere?
Great question. Tito Langston Finance. Not to, so we've looked into it, particularly with power schools, and there have been discounts. As you can see, this is a multi-purpose system that we use. So the discounts come into play because there's 4 or 5 different modules, if you will. So when it's time to renew it next year, we'll look into it being a multi-year agreement. This is just the last year of it.
Students.
Mr. Williams, can you elaborate a little bit more, Minnie?
I understand that as kindergarten teachers do not have access. Everything they do must be handwritten over and over again for all grading, all correspondence. Nothing is in PowerSchool, and this is the PowerSchool program that houses information. Why does it not service kindergarten students and teachers?
It serves all students, but I think where we're keeping up with the data and the standards and then with the notes. So what I can do is go back to Bill's team and exactly ask what can they do for kindergarten teachers? What else can they do for all of the writing that they're having to put in place and all of the documentation, and just to check to see exactly what is required and how we can mitigate.
I had several teachers to tell me they have actually created problems with their hands from all of the extensive writing that they have to do per child. It may be 20 or 30 sheets that they have to fill out on a weekly basis, but it all has to be handwritten, and none of it is electronic.
Commissioner Williams, is that to submit a grade, or is that to some level of compliance?
All work in the kindergarten classes, none of it is automated.
Okay.
According to them, all of their lesson plans, all of their roll calling, all of their grades, everything has to be entered by hand.
Manual. I'll look into it. Well, thank you.
Superintendent,
Yes, ma'am.
at the end of this, outcomes, it will support Hanley Elementary and improving behavior outcomes. Why?
Are we on PowerSchool?
Yeah, it says, talk about PowerSchool, expected outcomes. It will support Hanley Elementary and improving behavior outcomes.
I can answer that. Why
Why is Hanley being singled out?
Yeah, I can answer that, Dr.
Go ahead. This is why the item should.
Yes. Ms. Coleman, actually Hanley had that particular part with PLZ when they were with the ASD. So basically they wanted to keep that component. So instead of them paying for it separately, we added it in with our master service agreement. So we didn't want to take anything away from the school that they already had. And then also Thomas and I know he works with Hanley, but that's part of the program, a part of what the principal had in place, if you have some additional questions. But it wasn't anything it was something that they wanted to continue to use, and we wanted to support that school.
We'll update the language, Commissioner Coleman. I understand what you're highlighting here. Yes, ma'am. Ready? Those three? Oh, I did. Item 2.03 is the multi-tiered system and supports platform. This is a recommendation to approve the contract for Public Consulting Group in the amount of $419,971. This purchase is in alignment with the requirements or with our current Ed Plan data management system. So this is to continue to allow the systems that we have to function appropriately, and this is one of those platforms that is necessary. This is a single source aligned with our Tennessee Department of Education current contract, and this is year 2 with the option to renew for year 3, additional years in the following, and then those are the costs. Any questions?
And what areas of academia do they service?
So this.
All areas?
So these would be our students who are Tier 2, 3, our multilingual, bilingual students. This is where we're saying we need to provide more intensive services, but not just provide intensive services, provide an effective monitoring measure to ensure that results on the other side are achieved.
In what disciplines?
In all. This is across, yes, sir.
Question. Not to pick on this particular contract, but when you say this is a single source aligned, it means it's the only, is it required by the state to use this particular product? And the reason I ask is how often do we evaluate the effectiveness and the cost of these things, or do we just keep rolling because that's what we have always done?
So both, and I'll let Chief Langston start, and then I'll shore it up.
Just trying to make sure it's on. So great question. So when we say sole source, we're saying that primarily the state of Tennessee, this is a platform that they use. Remember, all of our data goes to the state of Tennessee, so we want to make sure that it's something that's integrated with what they do, so if that makes sense.
Are we evaluating additional systems is the second part of your question, and the answer to that is yes. And so the team has been tasked with reviewing not just this, which was the hesitancy with bringing PowerSchool back, but tough to do that in the middle of a year. And so we have these particular data systems to continue our flow without pause while we review additional systems.
On the second page here, it shows the final count as a percentage of students with literacy in math, tier 2 and 3. Based on the percentage of students who are meeting proficiency bars, this number seems low. If we have over 70% of our students who are not meeting mastery on state tests, how is this the total student count? And
That's
how are
correct.
we evaluating whether all the students who need it are part of this?
That's the opportunity for growth there. As what you are highlighting is exactly what has been highlighted as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Additional questions?
So the growth is only measured annually?
This is end of year. It's measured along the way. So this is just the end of year, what you have here, final count, and then influx until May 2020, until May of 24. That's when that ended, and then we pick up again in August.
So how often is the movement measured?
So this is in real time, unless it's a different system. This is in real time. So once the student's entered, and then the particular interventions are entered, and then the respective outcomes are tracked there. Ultimately, you want to move your tier 2 students back to tier 1 to the regular classroom setting. Tier 3 being those more intensive requirements and needs to meet for a student. Typically, students who have an individualized education plan, or students who are, adjusting to English as second or fifth language, and so you see them moving along. You want to see everyone move to 1, though, which is not accounted for here, which is the first touch in the classroom.
So how often are students moved?
I think that's some data that I'd have to look a little deeper for by school and overall to provide that answer for you. But just generally, this particular slide and platform, I'm not even sure what that report could look like. I'd have to get the team to look into it. Sharp questions. Additional questions on this item? That makes sense? Okay. Okay. Item 2.04 is Curriculum Associates iReady. It's recommended for the board to approve a 1-year contract and purchase 2 curriculum associates in the amount of $2.8 million to purchase iReady assessment and intervention tools. The iReady Teacher Toolbox and online learning platform provides grades K-8 with the universal screening assessment and then the resources to support the intervention and instruction on the other side of it. This is also in alignment with the Tennessee Department of Education, RTI. And this purchase is complementary to the district's implementation of Ready Reading core instructional resource, and that's also for grades K through 8. And this purchase is also in alignment with the Literacy Success Act to utilize a state-approved vendor for K-3 universal reading screener assessments. The general question is, are we sure this is valid? And then on the other side of that, do the assessments really lead us to the types of strategies that we can implement and the appropriate measures accordingly? And that's an answer that remains to be seen for me for sure. But generally, as in alignment with PowerSchool and then the ed plan that we just brought forth, Curriculum Associates and the iReady still remains in that bar as is too late or too early, if you will, into the new school year to make any types of adjustments that we know would be substantive. So as we put forth additional resources and really monitor what's happening as we make the assessments with iReady, I believe we can come, with a more informed decision. Questions?
Yeah, I think that got to what I was going to ask. I think the numbers look much closer to what I would expect,
Right.
In terms of tier. Are the iReady spring assessment scores indicative of TCAP performance? So when somebody is in the approaching or meets, should we expect them to meet TCAP proficiency? So
that goes to what my fundamental statement was there about the correlation of the assessments to the assessments, for lack of better words. So what we are being judged by, TCAP EOC, anything in that regard. Even as we think about PSAT as we use that, and ACT as well as we use that for a measure for most things, is this related and correlated, and how accurate it is? That's not something that I'm seeing sharply enough in the data now. But if we give it a full year, with what we're trying to do now, and then look at it on the other side of the first quarter as we test in September, and then review on the other side, then I think we can have some better conversations.
Yeah, I think as giving schools opportunities to learn from each other and how they implement things, and what leads to the most successful profiles of students in the combination of interventions, I'd be interested in, can we build something like this?
So the team has been charged with that as well internally. So short cycle assessments, gathering in departmental or department meetings, and developing common assessments as well, just based on where departments are in those respective schools and spaces, and then certainly utilizing and highlighting and raising up those sharper ones across schools as we think about scaling the way we do the work. Additional questions?
How does iReady complement the curriculum of Shelby County Schools? How does it associate with what we actually teach and test on the TCAP? Is there a correlation between the instructions that iReady and those that the teachers get from the curriculum?
I mean, generally speaking, yes, sir. And so, Curriculum Associates works closely with most of, if not all, of our curriculum creators, for lack of better words, McGraw-Hill and so forth and so on. And so the correlation there, I would say yes. The correlation to the actual exam, TCAP, that's where the pause is right now.
So you only get to be serviced in iReady if you are behind, is that correct? If that's the purpose of it?
No,
For
sir.
specialty students who need to grow?
That's everyone.
Everyone gets iReady?
That's everybody, yes, sir.
So how do you measure then the success of everybody? If we all getting the same medicine, the same stuff,
Yes,
seems like
sir.
there ought to be similar growth.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think that you would service students who are already on grade point for iReady.
Well, we want everyone to grow, so there's always another level. But I understand what you're saying. If everyone's getting the same dose of medicine, are we treating the same thing? We should be, that's correct. So everyone does have access to your first question. I think in terms of how we elevate those who are already demonstrating proficiency, there's an opportunity there. Additional questions?
How many students does it serve? The whole district? I mean, everybody uses it?
Yes, sir.
So then how do you measure, if everyone is using it, how do you measure the growth of those who don't versus those who do? Those who wouldn't need it, perhaps. I guess those who are higher performing students.
So there's a way to customize. So I generally speaking, the platform is available. Within the platform, you can customize.
But there has to be something that everyone has to do in common to get an accurate measure of growth.
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
if it's customized, that means everybody's doing something different. That is not true. You mean some students are doing
It has the
different things.
capacity to be customized, but everyone has access to the same. I'll have to log you in and let you see.
I don't need to see.
We can have a little session if you like. Is this satisfactory for now?
And who do we know who the where is this company housed? Where does it exist?
Curriculum Associates?
Yes.
I'm not sure, Commissioner Williams. I'm not. That's one question I have not asked.
Dr. Whitelaw, do you know?
No, but I know we usually go to our conferences, but I need to get the address, but we'll look it up, the physical address. I'm looking at the audience to see if the team knows the physical address for iReady. That's a great question.
This is not the concept.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google it real
Right
quick.
now.
Right now. So we can get the physical address.
I thought this was the concept that one of our past administrators brought to the district.
For iReady?
Oh, in terms of a creation, the development?
I'll look up the address, Ms. Superintendent.
Okay, they're gonna look that up. Commissioner Williams, you want it today, right? You want it right now? Tomorrow is fine. I appreciate that, sir. We're okay to move on to any additional questions about iReady? They're in Massachusetts, sir. Yes, sir. I'll do some additional research, though, to see if it originated somewhere else. We'll move on to item 2.05. The recommendation here is for a single purchase of Pearson Ames Web's Plus assessment platform. This is for 100 and this is for 185,000. Yeah, but it says in the recommendation 161. What's the discrepancy here? Well, my item reads 185,960 in this slide. I just want to make sure we make the correction here. This purchase is for progress monitoring as well. This is for students in grades 4-12, and this is aligned to the State Department's requirements for RTI framework. Again, this is for 4-12, and it's with Pearson for K-3 assessments, and it's also aligned with the Literacy Success Act.
The same question. Is it helping?
Respectfully, same response.
Same response, okay.
Yeah.
I think definitely want to look at other intervention systems.
Absolutely.
Because I do know the structure of a classroom, that having, even just for small group instruction, having an effective electronic intervention is helpful. So I want to find one of those. But in terms of investments, I think I also want to weigh it against, could we be paying for tutoring during the day? Could we be paying for materials for parents and students that are customized to the needs we've identified? So it's not about investing in students, just no money's good money if it doesn't work. So I would welcome something beyond platforms that's outside the box in terms of intervention that serves students and actually is data and research based.
Great. I think we talked about that in our individual huddles for sure, and certainly that's the way forward. This year, we're just committed to, for sure, tight monitoring practices to be able to have a true response to these questions as we measure impact, and we understand the only way to determine that is to make sure that the monitoring is sharp as well. So.
And to make sure that educators are included in those conversations.
Oh, always, absolutely.
Sure they can have something.
Absolutely. They can create most of this. Additional questions?
Althea just answered my question. The educators, they do the work. We just approve it. Have you had conversations with the educators? What is it on the platforms that they don't like and like?
I think the transparent and simple answer to that is many of these platforms could go away today and they wouldn't have any heartburn. The sharper response in terms of the other side of that is what do we use to measure in a short amount of time, with August 5th being here. So as we work to develop that with the inclusion of educators, teachers and their voices, and some of them planning and providing the necessary stipends to go along with that, then we can get to something that is teacher-made, teacher-supported, and also effective to yield the type of results that we can share when we answer, is this effective or not? So yes, to the question, the educators have been included in the huddles with me. They've lifted many concerns. Certainly, I can share with you offline about what those are to go a lot deeper, but yes.
All districts.
Across the district?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Additional questions? Okay. Item 2.06 is Curriculum Associates. This is Elevation. This is for our bilingual, multilingual learners. So this serves just as the other platform does, but it's more specific to our specific population of students that we serve with those needs. This item is being recommended for approval for the contract for Curriculum Associates in the amount of $291,398. And certainly that is for the support. There's also a professional learning add-on piece to this as we think about the more individualized needs of our students in this, particular subgroup here. And so this particular agreement is a cooperative agreement of a current contract for instructional materials and classroom teaching supplies and equipment. Commissioner Williams, I think to one of your earlier questions, like basically does it work? For this particular question, 41.3% of English learners met or exceeded the growth standard, which is slightly higher than the state average of 40.1%. So I would say that in this regard, this particular program is proving very beneficial for us as we think about the intricate needs that exist here. Any questions?
Why would you say that program make the difference? When they had other programs as well.
I think that when we think about our bilingual, multilingual learners and just the general transition to the space and all that they are competing with, immersing themselves in a new environment, and then certainly the professional learning that is required for teachers, that add-on component I would support or state with confidence is probably most beneficial as you think about being provided the sharpest strategies. And we agree that without the sharpest strategies, in addition to knowing the curriculum, then we pretty much, get no results or zero, very minimal results. So the professional learning is important because of those strategies. And then, when you can speak the language of a student, for lack of better words, then certainly you can yield the type of outcomes that we're seeing here.
But at some point, when you take so much medicine, you don't know which one is working.
I mean, you are accurate. Additional questions? Item 2.7 is the teacher tenure policy, and the recommendation here is just to approve the teacher tenure list that will be provided for teachers for 2022-2023, changing their career status from non-tenured to tenured. Questions, dear? Okay. Item 2.08, you had something? No. This is for Hickory Ridge Middle Grant Acceptance for Project Lead the Way. Year 1, the school will receive $15,000, and then year 2, which is this upcoming year, is another $15,000 for a total of $30,000. Recommending that we approve this to help purchase equipment, curriculum, professional development opportunities for STEM program at Hickory Ridge Middle School. Questions?
Did the school apply for this on their own?
Yes.
Well, I just want to commend them for looking out for gaps that they want to provide their students, and so I'm happy that we're doing this.
Additional questions, comments? Item 2.9 is for Shriners International Grant Acceptance in the amount of $33,625. The recommendation here is to approve this grant acceptance from the Shriner School's benefactor, Shriners International, and this is for the purchase of new Apple laptops and iPad devices for teachers and staff at Shrine School. Item 2.10 is Christian Brothers University. This is not to exceed $737,740. That is the total cost per student for all books and fees. Well, the total cost is $18,000, but it's not to exceed the $737,000. There is a $7,500 fee for a CBU program cohort advisor, the quality assurance, and the coordinator. That is a CBU faculty member. And so the recommendation here is to approve the professional services agreement for the aspiring teachers cohort. And this will prepare up to 40 teachers, 40 current MSCS educators to obtain full teacher licensure in the district's most critical areas of need, and certainly SPED, 6 to 12, elementary K-5 for the 2024-25 school year. Any questions?
We have been doing over the years.
This is recurring, so this is to continue developing and building out our pipeline.
Do we know, so we have 40 vacants? How many? 40. So the reason where I'm going with this question, I heard that the University of Memphis had a similar program, that they had 60 openings and only like 5 students from the district applied. So I was just curious to see if we were actually taking advantage of these things, and how do we notify staff that they're eligible, and that process?
Right. I think I generally recall a meeting coming up They reached out for the same reason, so I can follow up after that.
Right, thanks.
Is there a way to investigate the possibility of the use of Lemoyne College for this same purpose?
There's absolutely a possibility. I think interim president has, demonstrated, the eagerness to just collaborate in any regard, including that. So, and we have, yes, accreditation is important.
Well, this probably would be a tremendous help. So.
Absolutely. Additional questions? Item 2.11 is for Cognia. This is recommended that the board approve the budget amendment to award Cognia $1 million for turnaround efforts, resulting in Hawkins Mill Elementary School and Trezevant High School exiting the Tennessee Department of Education priority list. The bonus is awarded to them for efforts that supported this move. Questions?
To District 3. What are you going to do when Cognia exit out the building?
What am I going to do when they exit out of the building? That's not a conversation that we've had at length to be fully prepared to respond to that right now. Is that something we can discuss offline?
Next question. I have been asking this question for 2 years. Maybe you can
No pressure.
answer it. Trezevant is the center focus of the high school in Frasier. There are 2 schools, Grandview and Georgian Hills, who don't have Cognia as their turnaround model. I am concerned that they are all good principals. Let me get that out the way.
Wait a minute.
They are all good principals and teachers. But Cognia school turnaround model does something extraordinary to the schools in which they serve. I am concerned that Cognia if Cognia leaves out the building and the academics drop, what are you going to do about that? Because we're on a roll in Frasier, and I want to keep that roll.
Are you sharing with me that they are leaving?
3 years. 3 years.
Understood. I'll do some deeper review of that, Commissioner Love, and circle to you, and commissioners, but I'll circle to you.
Yeah, yeah. It is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
law.
Since we know Cognia works in our schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we looking at other schools and other districts, the possibility of using them in some of our other schools?
I certainly hear the question lifted today, and I'll take a look at what that next step needs to look like. I generally haven't given that any, I had no idea that that was open. So I appreciate you informing me.
Thank you.
I can get that in 24 hours, though. That sounds pressing.
It is the law of the school turnaround pilot. The state designates a school.
Right. That much I understand.
But we have Rod Richmond.
That's absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct.
That's good, Ms. Love, that's good.
I appreciate you buttoning up your question there and letting me get on out of there. Thank you, Dr. Richmond. I'll write your check tomorrow. That concludes the items, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. We have to wait till 3:45 to go to the next one.
Oh, we finished. Are there prizes when we finish early?
Oh, okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, Soup kind of got us on the express version, and so you have about a 5-minute stretch break. If you have any questions, come and see her. Thank you.
Dr. Whitelaw, what's going on? How you doing? Justin, how we doing? I don't see you.
The time is now 3:45, and I will call to order the Procurement Committee meeting. The Procurement Committee meeting. At the top of this Procurement Committee meeting, we'd like to add, I guess, 2.00 in respect of some of our external presenters who want to give us an update on the East Region High School.
Chief Thomas, are you leading?
And now I'll hand it over to Chief Thomas, who is getting up the materials for us to review.
Actually, Eric, I tell you what, let's do the New East region first, because it looks like maybe the Frasier team may have stepped out based on the schedule that they were originally expected. Oh, no, there's Brad. Or did you? Okay, gotcha. So if you could let him know that we're going to go immediately after the New East region here. Okay.
So just to clarify, we'll be adding a second item to this agenda with an update on the new Frasier High School as well.
All right, so Superintendent, would you like for us to proceed? Okay, great. So first of all, thank you so very much, Board. And so, of course, as you know, we've been working diligently over the last 2 years, or the last year, to be able to design 2 new schools, one, of course, for the Frasier, and one for the New East region. And so we are coming before you today to be able to provide an update on where we are with those design plans for the new schools. So first up, of course, we have the New East region team. And so Michael Winter with 4F Design. And then we also have Sal Fariashi with Renaissance. So I'll turn it over to them to provide that update.
Okay, thank you. For the sake of the update and speed, we're going to flip through a couple of slides real quickly, especially a lot of these, yeah. So you already know who I am. So let's move on a little bit further and get to the design update. Thank you. Back one. There we go. So the importance of this slide is just to show you that where we're at in the process. So what we have decided to do, or what we've been directed to do, is take the program and break it up into its individual parts and pieces. And as you get an overview of the entire piece of our puzzle, which is 388,620 square feet total, and then we've listed just this comparison on the bottom of the slide, which basically shows you the current size of Germantown High School, CHS with Collierville High School, and then Arlington High School. So you can get a feel for the relevance of the size of the school, and it's comparable to the current school that are currently in the county and in the surrounding areas. Next slide. So we would appreciate any support here that we are in front of the Land Use Control Board on the 13th. And we currently have been recommended for approval. Obviously, there's always opposition. That's the nature of the game there. But the reality to it is we've been cleared. The environmental issues that were perceived to be on the site have been cleared. TDEC has been monitoring those. And right now, we meet all of the requirements according to the zoning ordinances.
And the board has received some support from, the Land Use Control Board has received some support from the MSCS board, some letters of recommendation, so we appreciate that. If any others feel compelled to write a letter, please do so. That'd be very helpful.
Very helpful. One more slide, please. Okay, so this is really where we're at. So we started out with our programming phase at 388,620 square feet total. We took that program, which is a written program, we produced an actual document of the plans, which grew to over 431,000 square feet, and realizing that we had to cut that back into, number one, get it into budget, and to reduce the total square footage of the project, which is now 390,501.
And we're still in the process of refining this. We still have a little bit of work to do, but this is where we're headed, and it's very good news. We're getting things back to where we started on the program. So we're very pleased about that progress.
Okay. Next slide, please. So someone asked for us to do a comparison to the new high school that was done in Lakeland. And the reality to our square footage is, if you look at the red arrow, it says New East Region as drawn, and 327,000 some change there. And its comparison to the Lakeland High School program, which is about 2K difference between the two. So it's a very efficient high school as it compares to other schools in there. And that was the reason for the previous slide when we looked at Arlington and Collierville. Next slide, please. This is our approximate area. Next slide, please. There you go. And this is the current, the properties involved in this land use control board submittal. As you can see, all of the parts and pieces there. We also have 2 roads coming in, Fisher Steel Road in Moriarty, and then we're also extending a new road all the way out to Raleigh-LaGrange. We'll marry up with Trinity. So that will give us good access to the site and minimize the traffic congestion on Germantown Road. Next slide, please. And there you go. So this is the current shape of our plan. This is where we're, and Michael, if you want to go through some of the specifics on the site.
Sure. I think maybe you've seen this before, but by and large, there's 900 total parking spaces. I think we've actually increased that. We've refined this plan a little bit. We're over 1,000 parking spaces now, which is great. We have a bus lane that accommodates 18 buses. There's an indoor practice facility for sports, and it also has all the locker rooms. That's for the outdoor sports, football stadium, baseball stadium, softball stadium, and a couple of other exterior sports amenities. Next, please.
Continue.
And this is the current shape of our floor plans. This actually reflects the reductions in square footage we've had. I know it's kind of hard to see on this slide, but we've made a lot of cuts that don't impact the program, but they really make the building a little bit more efficient. We've cut out a lot of lobby space and things like that. We've made a couple of other adjustments, so we're really pleased with the progress there. So this is the first floor. This is the second floor. Previously we had a lot more second floor space, but we figured out how to make that a little bit more efficient. And then also we've introduced a lower level due to some site issues and some requirements related to storm shelters. And this is a view of the field house, which shows the indoor turf room in the middle with the locker rooms and weight rooms surrounding. And then the exterior design, this is the front door of the building, which I think you've seen before. And then the courtyard space, a great amenity for the students. And then also, this is another view of the courtyard. Perfect.
Okay.
Chris Acuff from All World Project Management is going to review the overview of the budget real quickly.
Sorry, good afternoon. Chris Acuff, All World Project Management. Just a quick breakdown of the overall budget. We did try to separate the actual buildings and athletic fields and things that are proper to the building from the land acquisition. So you see the academic building running just over $119 million, the field house running at $22 million, the athletic fields at just over $14 million, and then there are necessary road, utility, and sewer infrastructure based on the site plan that Sal just reviewed that are required for the project, which will run about $6.5 million. So that is a total of $162, almost $163 million based on the current program square footage of 390,501 square feet. And then obviously you've got land acquisition costs and a lot of environmental engineering and due diligence costs that are related to acquiring that land, which is an additional almost $6.5 million. And so the total construction and land acquisition cost is just under $170 million. Obviously there's FF&E and other items that would have to be funded through other mechanisms, but the construction costs and land acquisition costs are this $169,435 number. And then just quick timeline, and we try to overlay our cash flow with the timeline. We're looking at, obviously we're in summer of '04 right now. We're looking to be able to start some site construction, hopefully pending funding towards the end of this year. We're obviously in SD stages of drawings as we stand, and we could do some different packages to release some site packages if needed. Primarily, the construction will start in early '25 with the projected school opening of fall of '27, and we've overlaid the cash flow, so these dollars, round numbers, but they add up to the budget that I just presented, that we would need $10 million in 2024, $30 million in 2025, and then obviously as construction really ramps up in '26, we would need almost $90 million, and then the final $40 million would wrap up the final portion of construction there in 2027.
Okay, great. And so just before we open it up for questions, there's a couple of things that I want to make sure that I highlight for this particular project. So first of all, just as a reminder, this particular school became necessary as a result of state law TCA 492-140 and the subsequent agreement that this board, the city of Germantown, and the county entered into, which ultimately stated that we would construct a new school to provide students that are currently attending Germantown High School with an equal or better option. And so that's the reason we're here. I think the other thing that we want to highlight is that what you just saw in terms of budget, that represents construction only for the budget. That is not the total program cost that you've seen previously in the past where it included FF&E, but this is construction only, so we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that. And then, of course, the third thing, I think what they shared is that we are slated to go to the Land Use Control Board on Thursday of this week. And we do know that we will have some opposition from some of the Cordova business owners that are within close proximity to the location, with their primary concerns being traffic concerns. And so we believe that our design appropriately addressed those issues that they would bring up based on the plans that we have for the project. So, but as the team just shared, having your support and around this project by reaching out and communicating with your colleagues around the need for this project would be helpful. And we'll open it up for questions now. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Good to see you again. And thank you, Chief Thomas. I will ask the questions, and for the sake of time, you can briefly respond so the public listens, but we can also follow up on the side. Based on the conversation about traffic, have we heard back from the access to the easement? Is that a go, not a go? Let me run through all of them, and then you can decide. The next one is, I know we are working on a guaranteed cost, so at what point are we gonna land on that? Is that 169, because it was different the last time? So the third one would be, were we able to get anything from the city or the county in terms of infrastructure permits, any of the support that they can offer at lower cost or no cost to us? And finally, how confident do you feel about the cash flow, given the budget realities of the county and just all those things? Are we going to be in the schedule? What I know this body doesn't want to do is we don't want to get into a project and in 2 years, like, ooh, we don't have enough money for this. So I know there were 5 loaded questions. Again, we can briefly touch on them or we can follow up offline, but I think it's important the public knows too. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the first question that you asked about our ability to be able to get the access points from Moriarty down to Trinity or Raleigh-LaGrange. So we were able to, of course, execute the first transaction, which was the purchase sales agreement for Farrell Paving, the land there. We've been in conversations, of course, with Baptist, who has the other portion that we need in terms of them issuing a right-of-way to the city. We've had positive conversations with them, but we've yet to be able to get an MOU from them around that right-of-way, and that's driven by apparently a need for them to have conversations with a cell tower owner for that particular property. So they have yet to be able to finalize some of those conversations for that. Okay. So in terms of the cost, I think your second question was cost and what we may be expecting from the city or the county, but I'll let the superintendent speak to.
So since they're in deep discussion, I can follow up with you offline.
Yeah, so the cost, obviously it's a progressive process, so we're in schematic design pricing exercise currently, so the numbers that we've reported today are the most current numbers. At each milestone, we'll continue to go through pricing processes. So later in the year, we'll reach another design milestone. There's more design for the contractor to price, and we'll get into pricing update. The final price, per the current schedule, is that the construction level drawings will be completed in the spring, next spring, and so that final GMP pricing would follow the completion of those drawings next, I think it's March of next year on the current schedule. And then the cash flow is our best estimate as to what those needs would be based on, and you see it ramp up as we go through design dollars, and then it jumps up a lot during what we presume to be the construction schedule. So were that scheduled to push out or move in any way, on an elementary level, you could just push those dollars. Now, there may be a little bit here and there that would flow into but we feel confident in big chunks that those numbers are pretty accurate. Does that answer your?
The guarantee that the county will have enough funds, given the reality that by year 3, to your estimates, we'll have a different mayor and a different county commission, and so once they commit to this is it, right? They cannot come back 2 years and say, oh, we don't have enough money to fully fund your $89 million.
No, and absolutely. I think the key being, I think what Chris was just sharing, of course, what's presented is construction cost only.
Right, because we still have to come up with everything, furniture and...
Exactly, does not include the furniture, fixtures, and so forth. But what it does include, of course, is an estimate around escalation in terms of when we would anticipate the construction to build, and of course, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Correct.
And how the timing.
We included as much as possible as we could in the construction costs. So, correct, escalation costs, other contingencies. You saw the road work, all the things that were required to build it. We did treat separately soft costs, FF&E, things like that. That would be that would make it not apples to apples when you're doing comparisons to construction costs. But to your point, yes. The cash flow is as close as we can estimate it, but you would need a full commitment of the full amount before you could, because you can't halfway build a building and not be able to complete it.
Okay, thank you.
On slide 24, you have the total construction cost for the revised square footage. So it was 40,000 fewer square feet. What would that number have been if we had kept, what did we actually end up saving by going back and revising our plans?
We are currently in the process still, meeting with several key individuals looking at the total program. Most of it is a result of cutting some of the seats in the varsity auditorium, reducing that, and basically right-sizing the building compared to the program. So there were several things because of alignment. We had to, those numbers drifted, and on this scale of building, it can be a lot of square footage quickly. A lot of circulation was also a big factor in that. So it's just a combination of a lot of things, just reevaluating the programming, going back to the programming, and making sure we right size. None of the actual program itself was cut out of the project.
I understand. I think your response was, how did you cut the square feet? But I'm asking, how much money did it save us to do that?
Well, right now, we're trying to make sure we get back to the budget that we were working with, which was the 380,000 square feet, 388,000 square feet. So that's where we're at, getting it right back to where we were.
Have we done, I get the right sizing to the potential capacity in terms of number of seats in an auditorium or, classroom square footage, et cetera. Have we looked at all of the other amenities where we could save dollars. I know Lakeland, for example, got down to the line item on faucets. We don't need motion sensor faucets. Can we save if we're, have we gone line by line and cut as much as possible what doesn't impact 21st century education for our students in the building?
No, but we are in that process.
Okay.
So we're working with several different folks that are looking at even down to the physical size of a classroom.
Cool.
And making sure that those are right size for what we need and as you guys need for your educational requirements.
So what's the timeline on that number?
We're getting closer to a number. I think the issue right now is we're moving into design development, which will help refine this even more and finalize, I would say, within the next month.
Well, I would say that we won't have another major pricing milestone until the design development drawings are complete, which won't be for several more months. So right now, we're working through, based on the schematic design drawings, we have a value engineering tracker that we're working with the contractor on, and they've identified a number of BE items we can take. That decision has not been made yet, so we don't have a full final cost yet. We won't have a good pricing exercise to update for probably several more months.
And just to clarify, because I know that the reference that you made was to Lakeland, and so there we have done a detailed comparison in terms of the price comparison between the Lakeland property and ours. And so, of course, there's kind of 5 big buckets in terms of why that price point differed significantly. One is because, of course, the Lakeland projects began much earlier than the pandemic, where there was this escalation in construction costs. They also were able to leverage the fact that they had built the middle school and they simply built on the high school to the middle school. So they were able to leverage some of the assets that were already in existence, i.e. the cafeteria, athletic fields, and so forth. So those numbers may not have been articulated publicly when they were sharing their overall costs. There were other things that were owner furnished, so similar to what Commissioner Calvo mentioned, where the city of Lakeland may have underwritten some of the cost associated with permitting, code permits, some of the road improvements and things like that, that would not have been included. And then finally, we have more code requirements, so construction code requirements than they had prior to as well, i.e. a storm shelter that cost us a couple of $1 million more than they would have incurred, along with some other code requirements. So there's, and I think the Frasier team, in particular Turner, has done a detailed analysis of that, and what you'll see is that after taking into account some of those components, the variance was not that large.
Yeah, if you go back to slide, I think it was 6 or 7, I do a side-by-side comparison with the Lakeland High School square footage. It's about 2K of difference when that, and actually we have more programming elements in our building than what was in Lakeland, CTE, STEM, and those types of programs that Lakeland had very minimally. Now, to their side of it, they also had 2 dining rooms where we only need 1 because they were serving both a middle school and a high school.
Superintendent, can we provide, and I think this would just be a standard, if the programming can, based on the size of the space, can quickly escalate the cost of a project of this magnitude, I think the board should be all involved in giving input on what those programmatic offerings are, because what you see in Frasier could look very different than what you see in Germantown based on who's in the room. And so while I'm confident that we're trying to establish the same set of criterion, we have different GCs on the team, different architects on the team. So if we can get a list of those itemized programmatic offerings, any recommended changes, and again, from its inception to where we get to dream big, to now the narrative around we don't know how much money we're going to have to build these schools. And so what clawbacks are you guys considering Because if I'm Ms. Love, I may say, well, I would have preferred you to consider X versus Y, right? Because that's my district, and I know it matters to the community there. So again, seeing what those itemized programmatic offerings are would be helpful. Moving forward, Superintendent, because I know this would be 2 of hopefully 20 plus schools you build, I think you should identify a board member that serves at the ground level of being involved in this level of work, because it's how we get the message to stakeholders. We're not a taxing authority. All we can do is go ask for money. And so these conversations should be ongoing. I'm hoping they're happening monthly, so we can ask questions. And then having a board member armed with great details, and then maybe it's the board representative for that district, so we can then know as things change in real time, we're all armed with the facts. Because we are often tasked with countering the argument that, well, how did the building go from 110, which was when we started a couple of years ago, to now double that, right? And so, which now I can stop giving commentary and ask my first question, which is, how do we go from 110 to now $200+ million on the project?
Great. So no, I think that's an excellent point, Commissioner Woods. And so as you may be aware, there was an advisory committee meeting that does in fact include 2 of our current board members, so of course, that represent each one of the areas, as well as the county commissioners that represent the areas. We were meeting pretty regularly before in terms of making sure that they were aware of any changes that were made. And so of course, I think the initial feedback around the increase in cost was communicated once we actually were able to bring on some subject matter experts. The original $110 million was simply based on information that was available almost 2 years ago. If you can recall, we entered into the agreement with the county in 2022. So the fall of 2022 is when that $110 million estimate was pulled together. And we did not have subject matter experts on board at the time, such as our architectural engineers and our general contractors. After onboarding them in the fall of 2023, we did make, of course, the county and everyone aware that that $110 million was probably not going to be sufficient to be able to deliver on our promise of providing an equal or better facility and programming than what was currently had at Germantown High School.
So what
but
was
I don't know if they want to expand on prices and so forth.
That's helpful, but let me add a question. So at what point, as again, not a funding body, just get the ask for money. My question is, at what point when you realize either through value engineering or through scope creep, pulling that back in, that you realize you're going to supersede the $110 million, at what point do you say, pump the brakes? Is that where we are now? Or do you say, hey, keep dreaming, keep designing, and then if we design it, they'll fund it. So like, how do you then, just again, for future buildings, I think it's important for us to know, like, do you just keep punching at it and hope that they fund it? Or do you say, you know what, we've superseded what we have been at, what the funding body has indicated that they're going to pay, so we should probably stop right here. I'm just trying to see what we should do there.
No, I think that's an excellent point. I think in terms of this team, we have our last charge from this body and the county body where it was voted on was to proceed. And so we've been working accordingly. Once this body or the county pass a resolution to tell us to do something different, then of course we will support at that time. So,
Commissioner Woods, to just tie that piece up for you, moving forward, any new bills, as you've placed upon me, 20 of them, I think I heard, the sharper response to that is whatever the board votes on and whatever we determine is the cost, then that's what we stay within. And all of that is providing you ahead of time what the particular programs we desire for those spaces want to be, so you can make the decision accordingly.
Thank you for that, Superintendent, because that's what
we only do what we charge.
That's what we need to do, right? And I get it. We're all excited. So let me close with these comments, right? Because I see my chair getting antsy. I've talking too long. So look, super excited for what's happening for this school, Mauricio, and the impact of students. I'll go ahead, in case I don't get to speak on the next group that's coming, super excited for what's going to happen in Frasier and the work that's happening out there. We are where we are. I think through value engineering, we need to keep bending that cost curve, because this 9-member body is going to be tasked with beating the drums and begging for cash for 2 schools that represents, this entire body, but don't sit in everybody's district, right? But I think this conversation, to your point, Chief Thomas, is for us to hear ongoing, not just when there's a problem, like all the time. What's an update? You want us to spend $500 million. We should be updated monthly. There should be no pause. I don't care if we change superintendent, change colors of the school. Every month, this funding body should hear from the people that we're paying, that I know they're calling you guys weekly and giving you some update. We should at least hear monthly. Is that fair? Thank you.
Okay, great. So next up, we'll have the Frasier team that will provide an update.
I mean, I just,
Question?
I think the position we could find ourselves in as a board with county funding is that we have 2 beautiful brand-new buildings, and we have children in buildings that need HVACs, leaking roofs, with $94 million slated as mandatory costs. I can't, in good conscience, make a decision for someone who will benefit in 2028 to students who are in classrooms right now. And so if the decision that we need to put in front of us is that athletic fields or an indoor practice facility have to be put on pause, we need to have an honest conversation with the county. Is like, all of this needs to happen, so how does it all fit? So if we need to be more aggressive in what we're committing to students who are currently achieving in our district, I think that's what we need to do.
No, absolutely. I agree. Okay. So with that, of course, in terms of the Frasier School, if you can recall, the county commission provided funding for the architectural and engineering of the Frasier School actually maybe 3 years ago, and at the time gave the charge, hey, go build, we don't have any funding for you in terms of what that looks like for the overall cost of the school, but we're going to at least fund you to build, and build based on, of course, what new high schools look like for the year. And so this team has been at it for quite a bit, from quite some time. And they were, after there was the agreement with the Germantown high schools, that's when the funding was also identified and funded to the Frasier School. So with that, we're going to turn it over to the team that will give you an update on that.
Thanks. My name is Brad Committiee with A2H.
Hello, Montre Haynes with TWF Builders.
And Stuart Smith with A2H.
So we're going to give you guys a quick update on the design. As Chief Thomas mentioned, we're a couple of years ahead of East High School. So we've fully designed phase 1, which is the essential program of the school, and we're going to show you a little bit of imagery on that front. And we are beginning programming for phase 2, which is the enhanced academics, things like the CCTE program, performing arts, et cetera. So the images you're going to see right now are phase 1. We'll talk about phase 2, look at a site plan. We'll get into the cost estimates and scheduling, and then some general plans for the capital campaign. Let's see, if you could back up just a couple of slides, I'll talk through these. This is your front door, so Delwood Avenue is right to the immediate left. This is your secured parent and student drop-off. The classroom building is on your right. Administration is directly in front of you, 1 story. Next slide. You're looking at what we're calling the stair commons. This is a very open, flexible learning environment that sort of steps down a cascading stair connecting the classroom building with the library services, food services, and athletics. The library is behind the tall painted glass, food service just beneath it, and in the foreground you'll see the exterior plaza. This is a school that's very much connected inside and outside. There's lots of daylight, there's lots of connections to what's going on in the exterior of the facility as well. So you're standing right next to the football and track field looking at stair commons. The next slide. You see the gymnasium in the foreground and the classroom building beyond. The athletic field is to your left, you don't see it, and the plaza area is directly in front of you. It lines up directly with the main interior circulation that connects all the students from the classroom building to these daytime services like food service and athletics. That's a view of the stair commons. On the inside, again, you can sort of see there will be a lot of shade and shadow and light changing in that space. It'll be dramatically different day and night, and a very flexible learning environment. That's actually part of the media library services seating area. And on the next slide, with luck, we'll have a little video. We'll see if this works. Looks like it. So approaching the main entry, that's your student drop. Looking at the classroom building in the distance, this is traveling on Delwood going west. Looking at the classroom building beyond and administration in front, the site sort of falls away. Looking at the site from the northeast, the gymnasium in front, classroom building beyond, and you can make out the plaza that we're in now. And in just a moment, you'll see the whole campus. There we go. So again, phase one, not really the whole campus, the whole phase one campus. And one of the features of the site is it's a quite constrained site, but it has required all of these things to be located next to each other, and I think the project benefits quite a bit from having that density. You can see the way the light changes in the stair commons. And I went quickly, but that's where we are currently for phase one. We're very excited about the project. And we are commencing technical drawings for the vertical construction now. The design is complete. And Montre and his team are in the process of actually starting construction now, mobilized on site and getting ready with the underground. So just a quick update. We have very recently, and are actually still in the process of reducing the size of the classroom building. You can see that the classroom building in the lower left corner there, if you've seen this presentation before, is 48 feet shorter. There's a gap between steel and the classroom building. We took out, I believe, 9 classrooms in order to reduce costs. There's space to put back, we took out 12, and there's space to put back 4 per floor, so 8 total could go back in the future. In addition, we're showing baseball and softball. Those aren't currently in the program. There's space for them. It would require removal of the existing elementary school that's on that corner. But again, the site is very constrained. We've got space, but it would require extra work and isn't currently funded. The red area that you see is not designed. That's in the beginning of programming, and that's as our enhanced academics. This is basically, the phase one is the essential classroom that we need to do to go forward to have a high school and be able to proceed with this work while we seek funding and et cetera. We're beginning programming for specifically the CCTE program, an auxiliary gym, performing arts classrooms, and a performing arts facility. We previously, if you've seen this presentation before, were preserving the existing auditorium at Frasier. We're now removing it. We were able to realize a significant amount of savings by not renovating a facility, lovely as it is. It truly is a beautiful building, but it's bigger than the school needs. So we can build more efficiently with new construction and have a modern performing arts facility. And it's smaller. The previous one was about double that size, about 1,500 seats total. Next slide, please. Just a quick update as to the current VE that we're in the midst of. We should be done with this, we hope, by the middle of next week if things work out well. You can see the red bands at the bottom. There are 4. Those represent the 12 classrooms that we've removed. And when you remove those from the facility, the whole classroom building just collapses a little bit to the right. So it creates a little bit of space between the classroom building and Delwood. in that space that 8 classrooms could be built in the future, should they be funded. And then additionally, we're showing to shell classrooms. That means build the exterior space, build the exterior walls and roofs, make them airtight, watertight, but no interior construction at all. So one big open shell of a space. We plan to, and it may not be located in exactly that spot, we'll pick and choose. Once we've programmed the phase 2 work and we know what's going in specifically to that part of the project, some of that program is likely to move over into that shelled space. It's always an option to put classrooms back there, but that should provide additional savings as well. Next slide, please. Let me pass this to Montre.
From a construction estimating update, just so everybody's aware, we are through our 100% DD set of documents. So at this point, we've right-sized our budget and only included the construction cost. Within that, as we've previously talked about, we've right-sized the building as well and saw the cost savings from that effort, as well as some VE savings that we've worked with Memphis-Shelby County and the design team that will be going into the 100% set of CD documents. Also, from that standpoint, we're doing early release packages, so we've already mobilized on site. So some of our true values are at a CD level. We currently have ERP1 and ERP2 priced out from a construction document standpoint. So overall, the budget from a right sizing standpoint is standing at $135 million. Next slide.
I just want to interrupt for a quick second. Since we're not sitting here with a bunch of architects, DDs, CDs, ERPs, ABCs, just try to make sure we keep it at a novice level as possible, please.
Okay. And do I need to break that down, or are you?
Yes.
Okay. So DD is design development, and if you guys want to speak to.
During the process, we have a schematic design phase where we do the conceptualization of the project and do the programming. After we do the programming, we do design development. That's where we start to identify the materials and where the doors are and the restrooms and things like that, and get a more detailed portion to where we can do a cost estimate. Construction documents is where we are actually doing the technical aspect of the drawings. We're not designing any longer, we're now doing the documents, so Montre and his team can construct the building.
And then the last one is the early release packages. We don't have 100% of construction documents at this point, but what we have been able to do is pull out the front end, site, grading, some of the building structure information, and price that out to 100% CD documents so that we can start construction today as we finalize the rest of the documents, so that hopefully at the end of the day we can meet a finish date to allow the school year to happen in 27. And this size just represents, from an overall standpoint, from a value engineering standpoint, we've worked with Memphis-Shelby County and the design team, and we've been able to cut out close to $10.8 million. And with those cost savings, we haven't cut out programming, but we worked as a team to evaluate materials, the behind-the-scene house stuff that you can kind of see, to make sure we right-size from a feasibility and material selection so that we cut out some of that waste. Next slide. Just from a cash flow standpoint, as we've said, we mobilized this month on site. We're looking to spend the $10 million on this cycle, which will be going into this year. Then we would have a $60, $52, and $13 million spend. We've been able to do a resource allocation study, so we do feel good about these numbers and the projected forecasted years. And overall, from a scheduling standpoint, we're looking to have CD documents, construction documents, 100% this year, so that we can lock in our GMP pricing early next year and look to substantial completion spring of 27. Next slide. Other than that, it's the transition plan, and just talking about, I know from a Memphis-Shelby County standpoint, Chief Thomas, I don't know if you want to talk any more about the transition plan.
Okay, great. So just a reminder, of course, we have, there are currently students at or there were for this previous fiscal year, or school year, there were students at MLK. If you can recall, MLK will no longer exist as a charter school as of May of this year. And so those students were given the option of attending one of 3 schools, Craigmont, Tresvant, and Raleigh, Egypt, where we would provide transportation. So this is just a reminder that that work is going forward in terms of ensuring a smooth transition for those students. Next slide. And of course, there was a funding campaign and communication plan in place going forward. Next slide. And we're opening it up for any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Chief Thompson. Can you just remind the public again about the need for this high school and just the purpose for it? From when I first got wind of it was way back in 2018. The idea of it, I think, was brought forth, at least for me. It may predate me as well with Commissioner Love, but just the need for it, in Frasier, and to speak to that.
Okay, great. So, and of course, perhaps Board Member Love can even speak even better than I can about it. But of course, right now, so a couple of things. The current students that will attend this new school will be the old MLK, the students that attended the old MLK Frasier building, as well as the Tresvant school. And so if you look at the deferred maintenance on both of those schools and the conditions in which those schools are currently in, there were individuals advocating for a new school in that particular community for some time. And they were successful in that advocacy perhaps 3 to 4 years ago when they were able to get approval from the county commission for Memphis-Shelby County Schools to move forward with at least the design phase. So they were provided the A&E funding to begin designing a school. And so, but I don't know if Board Member Love want to, share any more, because she was on the forefront of that advocacy for these new schools.
And maybe Commissioner Love and Superintendent, if you could also speak to, is this an area of growth in Frasier in terms of students and family population? Like with the new East Region High School is exploding out in that area. So I just want to see, how does that rank with the Frasier area school?
So the answer to that is not really. But when it comes to a new building, I think you're able to attract more students. I don't know that it is to the degree, as we're thinking of other schools and areas, but as we work with the city and our partners to develop housing over there and expand opportunities in the area, then that would generally bring more families and certainly could yield more students and enrollment.
To answer the question, the administration took programming out of Frasier and Tresvant. A lot of programming. Tresvant has 2,000 kids that's assigned to Tresvant. You're a parent, all of us are parents. We go where the programming is. That is the reason we need a new school, to bring the kids back to Frasier. Second question. I noticed that you didn't say phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 on the Cordova school. You only said it on the Frasier school. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you care to explain that?
Yeah, no, I can explain that. The phasing for the project is remnant of where we were a year and a half ago, when we found that we had a project at the initial end of our initial programming phase. We were $170 million, I believe, and we needed to get down to 105 at that time, if memory serves correctly. And the only way to do that was to remove program and divide the project into 2 phases: essential program, enhanced program. So that's what we did. We in addition to a number of other value engineering strategies to bridge that gap. That was a tremendous change to the project, and just very, very difficult for all of us to do. So we're very pleased to be standing here presenting an entire project with all the programming back, though it's not all designed. The plan is to start, right? So we've got the phase 1 program designed. We're ready to build it. We're commencing, and we have space reserved for what we've called phase 2, and we're about to start design on that, as programming and design on that as well.
And I think it's more or less where the two projects are in terms of design. So, of course, with the New East region, we're pretty much just in the visionary stage. Once we get to a point where they're moving from schematic design to development design, and there needs to be movement in terms of actually building, there may very well be a need for us to highlight a phase or delineate a phase or so based on where we are in construction. What we know is that there was funding available that could support the phase 1, and to not slow the project down, they said, hey, let's move forward, let's identify what's critical to the project, and let's go ahead and get started, which allows us to do the work that's starting at the project at the site now, which includes the demolition, the groundwork. Those are the things that are included in this initial phase that allows us to keep moving. But as funding comes online, that allows us to move forward with a complete project.
And the plan is right now for us to open up the school in a 27 year with both of those completed. So it's not going to be a half open school. Both of those will be completed and finished by then.
Part of that plan is to have what we're calling phase 2, the second part of the project, designed and ready to construct. As Montre's team is coming around the building, we'll be able to continue on with that next phase. So it'd be one project.
Because this is the final question for me. Because I don't want to tell my community, send their kids to a half-built school. And correct me if I'm wrong, that is what the design looks like. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the intent is to have the phase 1, phase 2 built at the same time.
Right.
When we met the intentions of the goal of the budget for the first phase of the project, that was to meet that goal. We then identified additional programming that was in other schools that needed to be a part of this project. So that's why it's a little behind in the design phase. But when we get to construction documents, we will deliver that in January this year, or this next year. So the construction then will be of the entire school.
So both phases will be complete at the same time. So when we open the school, you're going to have both phase 1 and 2 complete. So that school will open with all of the components inclusive of phase 1 and phase 2.
Respectfully to the team, and thank you for being here. I believe what we shared during the meeting specifically was to this point that Commissioner Love is bringing up. My request was to remove the language because that's the only thing that is can be read. It doesn't matter construction-wise and logistically and what we understand operationally, right? What we're sharing to the public is going to be received from the public, and I share that as someone who's about to enter something and share and respond to the same. And so what the public sees is you're going to build half of my building now and then half some other, time. And so that was our conversation at the table. And so once we do this again, if we can update the language as we discussed, with an understanding that internally what that development will look like. Is that accurate reflection, Commissioner Love?
I agree with
The monthly meeting will definitely happen, but did that speak to your point about the phase 1 and 2, though? Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
My question is more for the superintendent in this regard, and Chief Thomas. You presented the presentations from both schools showing construction costs only. What's the justification? why do you want us to know only that cost, knowing that, to Ms. Love's point, you're not going to send kids to schools without, furnitures and fixture. So the soft cost, why are you only presenting in the public space just the contracting costs?
So of course.
Construction costs, yeah.
Gotcha. So of course, we presented the construction cost only based, of course, on some recent conversations that we had with the superintendent in terms of how we should present the data. And I think it's mostly driven based on, and maybe that decision was based on the fact that we wanted to be transparent around what's truly construction versus those things that are not a part of the construction cost itself, but I'm sure she'll be able to elaborate more.
That's correct. So essentially, we're going to have to own some of this in terms of costs, and those costs that fluctuate, which are those soft costs, FFE, and additional costs that were inserted and continue to fluctuate, contributed to the bloated, if you will, costs that you were asking, how do we get from 110 to here? And so those costs continue to move as years move, as time passes, and so pulling that out, earmarking that if we have to own that, then that's what the district would own. But in terms of the funding body and what has been committed, we can get to that number through what has been committed in the budget.
Okay, makes sense. But Chief Thomas, when you use the word transparency, I think the best way to show transparency is, yes, pull that out, inform the board of the construction cost. Right alongside that, here's an estimated cost, because I'm sure somewhere internally, Mr. Langston is budgeting for those dollars. Or is this a new norm? Do we now, as we go and ask for dollars from our funding bodies, do we say, hey, just give us a shell, give us a building, we'll take care of the rest? Is that what we're saying that we're planning to do? I get if we wanted to show true cost comparison, and if that's what was driving it, because you indicate often when you speak, Chief Thomas, that other parties help to fund some of these schools. So are we not going to ask funding bodies to cover those soft costs? Are we planning to carry that cost ourselves for future new bills?
So of course, as I think you shared earlier, is that we don't generate revenue. However, we may have the ability to be able to support the new school bills as we identify resources that could be potentially earmarked there. And so of course, I think the advocacy for the two new school bills would be one, I think in the way we're presenting it now is for the construction costs, and then that we would support any additional needs through resources that we identify, just as what the superintendent just shared just now.
The reality is what we all know, the funding's not there. Right? And you mentioned that earlier. And so having the conversation about it, what can we own? What are we really asking, to Commissioner Hewitt-Garcia's point, the funding body to remain committed to? And then that's how we fill in the gap. So we do have to earmark, and this is not just for these two new bills, but as I continue to remember the 20 that you set forth earlier, we would have to begin to earmark money and funds in each budget cycle in order to complement any of the spaces that we plan to put in the comprehensive facilities plan.
All right, thank you for that, Superintendent. Again, I just want to echo out loud that this board remains laser focused on building these two new schools that we've committed to the communities. This is not a comparison of, hey, the East region got X, let's make sure Frasier gets Y. What we're signaling is that we're committing to an infrastructure plan that right sizes a district, that includes both consolidation and new builds. Like if we step away from that as our charge, then we missed a mark here. If we end up in 3 years with two new schools, $500 million in new tax-funded facilities, and the rest of our schools continue to look the way they are, we have missed the mark. So let's keep pushing, as Ms. Garcia indicated, the need for building these buildings. Let's show the true cost to board members, because ultimately somebody's going to have to bear the cost. Right? And let's continue to make sure that this is just the beginning as we bring forth, which the superintendent has indicated her commitment to, a plan that talks about what the future footprint of this district looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Great questions. Thank you, Chief Thomas. We look forward to having more updates. We're going to stop. We will have an extended work session on next week. We'll pick up where we left off. I'm going to ask you to take about 5 minutes to just transition, and we'll be ready to begin the special call meeting. Thank you.